and welcome to, the show, I suppose. This is going to be obviously a different video than usual. I had a request from a viewer to take a look at David Paulides in his recent videos that he's posted on YouTube to see if perhaps his methodology has changed, to see if he does a little bit better research and perhaps is more accurate now. And I figured that was actually a pretty reasonable request. I've been tearing into missing 411 Eastern United States for a while now. So I decided to go ahead and take a look at the most recent video that he had put out, at the time anyway. And it was Missing 411, David Paulides presents 3 men missing from central British Columbia. If we take a click on that, we look at the notes here. It is supposed to contain 4 cases, actually. That's because he mentions one in passing to sort of prove a point. And then the other 3 are the ones he actually goes into, and he holds up this printout of a map and so on. So yeah, let's take a look. I'm not going to show any of the video in mine except for just stills. I don't know if he's one of those people who likes to copyright claim everybody. I kind of assume so, because in the first half, no kidding, the first 30 minutes of this hour and 2 minute long video, he spends it reading Amazon reviews on his books and responding to them, specifically negative reviews. And it seems to me, based on what he said in this first half hour, that this has been a real problem lately, where he says that people are going on to Amazon and just posting these baseless 1-star reviews, and it seems to really kind of rile him up. He does give a good reason. He says, hey, I've poured a lot of time into this, and to have these people just ripping into it and saying it doesn't matter, that it's garbage, is really hurtful. I'm paraphrasing a little, but that's the point that he tries to put across, is it's very hurtful that people are saying these things for his passion project. And I get it. I understand that it would be, if I had written this book, or this series of books even, and sent it out into the world and said, hey, look at all this research I've done, and people just rip into it, yeah, that'd be disheartening. The flip side, though, is perhaps he should have done better research. If he had done proper research, then there would be nothing for people to rip into. And people could say it's boring, because it is rather dry. But so are my videos. He's not trying, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, but my belief of what the Missing 411 series was all about was a dissemination of information. That is to say, to point out that something is wrong, to share your research, not to be entertaining. And that's why I'm so critical of it, is if this was a fiction piece, well, first of all, he shouldn't have real people in it, because that's very disrespectful. But if this was a fiction piece that used fake names, I wouldn't have anything to criticize. Be like, oh yeah, that's, kind of a neat story. And it's very interesting. But because he's presenting it as if it's real and using these real cases, the benefit of the doubt that you give him is that he's just a very bad researcher, as opposed to he's just outright lying. I don't like to say that he's lying, just that he's perhaps very, very bad at researching, and he will just stop reading in the middle of an article. Once he has the information that he wants to get out of it, he just stops. And again, that's the benefit of the doubt speaking, Because if it were the case that he's reading all these articles and he's getting all this information and then not presenting it, that's where there's a problem. But anyway, I've carried on about that long enough. So the first 30 minutes is him just talking about Amazon reviews and asking his followers, of which he has many, asking his followers to post positive reviews to sort of counterbalance everything. So going into it, and I took pages of notes, by the way, and this is why I hate doing videos. I mentioned this in the response comment. I hate reviewing videos because I had to listen to this last 30 minutes many times. Because, I would be taking notes and then I have to back it up, so I make sure that I'm getting exactly what he's saying. And of course, I'll link this video in the description so you can see there's no shenanigans going on. For the first case that he presents, Emerson Holt, going to be very brief. I'm not going to list out the points. I'm just going to say if I found it to be accurate or not, and why and how. Emerson Holt, I did find to be accurate. Yeah, that he presents it well, and it is strange. It's weird. So if all of them are presented like that, we're a-okay. So the first case in his British Columbia line is Dean Morrison. It's a case of a man who is working on a ranch and disappeared off that ranch. And there are some points that he makes that, there are problems with them. First of all, he says that he acknowledges, hey, there are reports that Dean Morrison was suffering from some form of depression because he was going through a divorce at the time. He has a couple kids. The divorce was apparently not amicable. Then on the day that he goes missing, he's fired from his job at the ranch and his car won't start. And so it's just a series of horrible things happening to him. But then, he says, but hey, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything that he was depressed. Yeah, okay. Because depression, that's not that big of a deal, right, guys? Depression, it's fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't bother you. Beyond that, which I suppose is a matter of opinion, the first point where there's actually a discrepancy from what he's presenting as opposed to what actually happened is that he says, when he was fired, there was no yelling, no screaming, no real altercations. Yeah, there was. Sure, there was perhaps no yelling and screaming. I haven't been able to confirm that necessarily. But there are reports that he was shoved by his former boss, I suppose it would be at that point. Now, Dean didn't hit the guy back, but I would call shoving a bit of an altercation there. He also says that this being fired was out of the blue, like there was nothing leading up to it. That's also incorrect. He had been previously he was a great worker, but with the divorce and everything else going on, according to his family, he had a tendency to go on drinking binges. His boss reported that he was becoming more slow and taking a long time to do his work recently and just not being very accurate, which led up to him being fired. Next, he says that, after he got fired, he went to his truck and wouldn't start, so he called a tow truck. Well, that's also not really true. From what I understand anyway, he tried to go to his car. He wasn't acting right, according to the boss, which I understand, being the last person that saw him, is a little suspect. But the boss took him out to his car because he's not acting right. He's acting very lethargic, and he doesn't think it's really safe for him to drive, and he has some sort of difficulty starting his car, and says, it's broken, it must be broken down. It's like, okay. So the boss calls a tow truck because Dean is having trouble dialing numbers on his cell phone. He tries to call his sister, and he's having trouble doing it. He just can't seem to do it. So the boss calls the tow truck. And because he wasn't able to call his sister found out from his mother, I believe, when he went missing, because the tow truck did pick up the car or the truck, unlike what Paulides says in his video, brings it, I believe, either to her house or somewhere where she's aware of it at least, and he's not with the truck. So it's like, well, his stuff is here, but where's Dean? You know, a very odd situation where he just sort of falls off the face of the earth. And it's not known what happened between, you know, the boss calling this tow truck and it showing up, because when the tow truck showed up, yeah, he wasn't there, but it still did take the truck and bring it home. PI is hired. That's correct. The PI believes that it wasn't suicide. Yeah, that's true too. He thinks there's foul play involved, and frankly, I kind of agree, but I can definitely see that where this was perhaps the straw that broke the camel's back. So I can see both sides of it, but I'm not here to endorse any theories. I'm just letting you know what I was able to find information wise. So that's my findings with Dean Morrison. If you're interested, this is where I got most of my information, was from a podcast called the Vanished podcast. The reason why I think that they're credible, whereas Paulides is not being credible in his video, is that they actually have interviews with family and friends who were there. You know, they have firsthand accounts, and it's from these accounts that I'm drawing this information. But if you're interested in the case, the thing is an hour long as opposed to the, I believe, 10 minutes that's devoted to him in this video. Please check it out if you're interested. Up next is Luke Neville. This one is a case where, yeah, I couldn't find anything wrong with it. Or at least I couldn't find anything wrong with the facts that are presented. Besides the fact that Paulides says that he was a home renovator and previously a firefighter. Well, from what I'm able to find, he was a firefighter still. And he was also a carpenter. But I suppose you could call a carpenter a home renovator. He also tries to link this to the other cases. And he's like, and this is actually the first thing that he says, is it's remarkable. He says that, you know, hey, if these missing persons cases all occur within a 30-mile radius and they all happen within 6 months, you know, even a stupid police officer. Oh, what's the exact quote? I want to get this exactly right. Here we go. And this is a quote. Quote, if we put 5 people missing in 6 months from an area within a 30-mile radius, I don't care. You could be the dumbest guy in the police department and you're going to figure out, something's wrong. But if I spread these out by years at a time, close quote. So he's trying to say he's the only one who's ever put this together because they're spread out by years at a time. He actually says, these 3 cases have never been presented together. As far as I know, I'm the only one who's ever presented these 3 cases as being linked. That's important because these 2 cases here, Luke Neville and Ben Tyner, have been presented together, and in fact, they are believed to be linked. And when you look at these 2 last cases, Luke Neville has no kids. He's not married. Ben Tyner, as far as I can tell, also unmarried, no kids. They went missing, like Paulides says, in a very tight area. So, yes, it is likely that they're related. Now, Dean. Yes, it's true that Dean went missing in a similar area within, I think he said it's 35 miles. So yeah, that's true. But let's look at the other factors here. I mean, Dean is married, going through a divorce, has kids, went missing at his job where he was fired, as opposed to the other two, Luke, Neville. It's very strange. He went missing and his car was found firebombed, well, burned out, on a logging trail or unused forest access trail, I think it is. Ben took his horse into the mountains and he wasn't found, but his horse was. We'll get into that here in a minute. But there's so many factors that don't line up with Dean Morrison that, of course, it's never been presented before with the other two. But let's move on here. Yes, the case presented with Luke Neville, the only thing wrong with that I could find, besides the whole carpenter thing, which, again, you could say that a carpenter is a home renovator. And he says that everybody loved him. I don't know how he could possibly know that. He was new to the area. And I never saw any articles where it said, oh, well, everybody just loved this guy. But he did seem like a pretty good guy. I mean, he's a firefighter, come on. But yeah, the main point that is wrong is, yeah, he's presented with Ben Tyner. And when you go from Luke to Ben, and you look at the similarities, I mean, yeah, you would kind of think that law enforcement's kind of dumb for not at least looking at the possibility that they're related. To illustrate that, let's look a little closer at Ben Tyner's case. I'm going to try and edit it out, by the way, but I'm sorry if you can hear me flipping through pages. I literally had a pen and paper and was taking notes for these. So these are pictures of Ben, a real cowboy. Is what he's described as. So he takes his horse on his day off and goes out riding in the woods, in the mountains specifically. And Paulides says that his horse is then found later on the other side of the mountain, completely untouched, has all of its gear on it and everything, and says that this is all very strange, which yeah, it is. He says that it's impossible that he was bucked off the horse because, I mean, come on, look at the guy. He's very skilled. He's a real cowboy. He knew this horse. He wouldn't get bucked off. To which I say, I've taken horse lessons a number of times, and my instructor, in every case, would have an injury from being bucked off a horse. Just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean that an animal is gonna kind of put you in your place a little bit. These are animals, not vehicles. They can be unpredictable. But regardless, I'm not going to drill into that too much. The point that he makes is that, hey, police should really do blood spatter analysis on the saddle and the reins and all this on the horse, because Paulides puts forward the idea that he was shot at range with a rifle by somebody who didn't like him very much. Which, fair point, yeah, that's a theory. The problem is that police did look for traces of blood on everything, and it was missing something. It was missing the reins. So what are the reins, if you're not familiar? The reins, if you're unfamiliar, are the part of the bridle that allow you to control the horse. They connect the bit that's in the horse's mouth to your hands, essentially. They allow you to pull on them, as you can see here, and steer the horse. Now, it is possible to control a horse without reins. It's just far easier to do it with reins. And indeed, some horses are trained to be controlled without reins. In fact, I believe that most of them are. They're often like clipped in or tied in. So it would have to be quite an event for them to be removed. And in fact, the times that I've put this on horses, it's all sort of together. They, in my experience anyway, and tell me if your experience is different, but the reins are generally left on the bridle. So the bridle being this whole part. So it's interesting that the reins are missing, and really a shame that Paulides makes it sound like they aren't, because I think it really adds another dimension to what could be going on here and makes the case more strange. Yes, as I said, these cases are indeed presented together in news articles, and I want to say even by law enforcement. They have said they're looking into a connection here, but we'll just have to see what comes of it. These cases are all so new that the primary thing, beyond just the misreporting that I've pointed out in the last two cases here, or indeed in most of these, is that he tends not to update. He tends to not present information that comes after the initial articles, which, I mean, fair play. I mean, I guess, like I said, if you're not a very good researcher, perhaps he doesn't look into it. He finds the article that he wants and he stops. Another example is this one, where he's pointing out that he doesn't use hyperbole. People he quotes in news articles are saying these things, like this superintendent who called Emerson Holt. This is to prove a point in the beginning when he's talking about the Amazon reviews again. He's like, I don't use hyperbole. It's these people in these news articles are saying these things, and I'm just quoting them. Well, yeah, that article gives that quote. But there's other articles, and one in particular that has the rest of the information. This only has 2 paragraphs in it. It's a little snippet. The one that has the full story that he's presenting, like all the information for, is, I want to say 7 paragraphs long, or thereabouts, and doesn't use this quote. It doesn't say it almost supernatural. It says that it's mystifying, which is a very common thing for people to say. And then the article at the end goes on to say, oh, and this person's missing and they probably drowned, from the same area and everything. The other thing that I want to address real quickly here as we wrap up this video is I got a comment saying, hey, he doesn't allude to Bigfoot. Bigfoot's not something that he's interested in. And while I can see how you would actually say that based on his current information, because on all of these cases, he's saying, you know what? I think there's foul play involved. I think somebody's killing these people. So he's gone more towards serial killer than Bigfoot recently. But I want to show you something. David Paulides has written more than one book on Bigfoot. Like, I'm not making this up. He has an interest in Bigfoot, or had, I suppose, is the better way of putting it. He had an interest. He had an interest in Bigfoot. And it's pretty obvious in Missing 411 Eastern United States that he's making these inferences of a large, fast, strong predator, that is doing these things. He's referring to Bigfoot. Now, you can disagree with that if you want, that's fine. I just wanted you to know where I'm coming from. I'm not just pulling that out of out of nowhere. I'm not pulling that out of thin air. It's here. It's in his history. So where does that leave us? Well, like I said, Emerson Holt is presented factually, and Luke Neville, besides saying that he's the only one who's ever linked him to Ben Tyner, is presented factually. There are some serious problems with omitted or just very different information for Dean Morrison and Ben Tyner. So you're looking at like a 50-50 if you count the case that's not even in the title, if you're talking about just what's in the title, then yeah, he's, at a solid 33%. So, do I think he's changed? Yes. I think that, like I said, I don't think he pushes the Bigfoot narrative as much. And at the end, to his credit, at the very end of this video, quite a ways down, he says like, oh, and I don't even know if these cases are, would fit the missing 411 profile. So I don't know if I would even include them in a missing 411. Well, you did. You included it in a video titled Missing 411. But, at the very end, he's gotten better at like covering himself and being like, well, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And instead of like sticking to his guns like he does in the book I'm reviewing. So, maybe he has changed. Maybe he has grown up a little bit. But is he a better researcher now? Giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying that this is just a researching problem? No, I don't really think he is. But anyway, thank you. I'm sorry that most of the video is me just looking at this. But like I said, I don't want to actually play the video. Please do go give it a look, confirm what I'm saying. I'll be posting a few things in the description for where I got my information. And until next time, when we pick up with the book itself again, take care.